Well, hello, and welcome back for everybody that's joining in online. Just remember, if at any point you decide that this is something that was really valuable for you, go ahead and give it a like. Consider subscribing to our Utah Node.js channel or the Beyond Code Bootcamp channel. That's all down in the doobly-doo. And with that out of the way, so for those of you here and watching online, I don't think we actually have anybody online today. Let me double check that. Where did it go? You've heard of TypeScript, undoubtedly. Are you familiar with why people argue for TypeScript?
Something with like the linting it does, where like it shows like if your types aren't lining up within certain functions and whatnot. That's as far as I know. Yeah.
So have any of you used a typed language before?
Java.
Okay, so you've used Java, and then either you've used C++. Okay. So let me just kind of give a quick intro to the concept of a type, to kind of head this off, so we're kind of on the same page. So I'm just going to write some pseudocode here. I'm going to make this maybe a little bigger. Whoa, too big. Back down. So in a dynamically typed language, JavaScript is a loose dynamically typed language. So what that means is we can do var word equals hello, and then we can do word equals 1. And this is unquestionably bad. I don't think that there is any argument for this behavior. This is bad behavior. There are very few languages out there that will allow this kind of nonsense. It is common to be able to do something like var word equals hello, and then when you do word equals 1, to throw an error and say 1 is not a string. And so it can remember the type that it currently is and say, hey, I'm a string. I'll be happy to be a string, but I'm not gonna change who I am to be what you want me to be. I'm gonna stick with the truth that I know. So you'd be able to say hello world or do other things, but it would throw an error if you were to change types. Another thing that you get in typed languages is, so in JavaScript, if I have, say, I've got a person, and I'm just going to define a person here, and they have a name, and their name is AJ, and they have an age, and their age is 102, and they've got a social security number, and the social security number is 344112. Well, wait. I probably shouldn't put that in. I'm just kidding. So if I go and say person.name is equal to Bob, that doesn't make sense to change my name, but I got a great name, but I changed my name to Bob, whatever. And then I can have person dot, but let's say I'm typing fast and I do this one right here, right? So now I did person dot minute is Bob. JavaScript lets you do this because it's very fluid, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. It's nice to be able to just add stuff as we need it. So as we're prototyping out our code, we can be like, oh, you know what? I actually need to be able to assign this here. I'll use this later. Now, it's kind of a bad pattern to just put that ad hoc. Like, what would be a good idea would be wherever you define the thing to give it what we call a 0 value or an empty value. So if I did have something that was this, and we didn't have anything to start it with, I just put it as an empty string, or I put it as the number 0 or -1, or something that indicates the value has not been set. But that way, when I go back and I look at my code, I can see that it's there and it's supposed to be there, and this is good, right? But what's not cool is when I have typos, and none of that is not actually something that I want to have. So in a typed language, you don't have the opportunity to make typos, but you also don't have the opportunity to do anything that's ad hoc, meaning just make stuff up on the fly. So are we in agreement that We don't like to have these kind of typos. I'm assuming everyone here at this table has done this, and you've spent at least 2 hours digging through your code, and you didn't even notice because it looks so similar when you're just scanning down, looking at with your human eyes. Your human eyes did what human eyes do, and they just made up the difference. And they swapped the letter for you. They did anti-dyslexia. And you saw that line 10 different times, but you never noticed that that's where your error was because your eyes did the human eye thing and were like, oh, hey brain, this looks similar to another word. Just unscramble it and tell him that it's that thing, right? Okay, so that is kind of where the start of the benefit of TypeScript, or just type languages in general, is. Also, you're refactoring your code. You decide that you don't want to call it first name. You want to follow the OpenID specification. So you change it from being first name to being given name, right? You go somewhere in your code and you change the name of something. But and you think you went through and you think you did a search replace and found all the places where it was, but there's a place that you missed. And so now you've got a place in your code where it's still called first name. Everywhere else in your code, you've now updated it to given name, right? So this is just kind of background. That's the problem that we're aiming to solve with this. And do you know why people don't use TypeScript?
I think people find it kind of cumbersome.
It sucks.
To just get what you want done. It's tedious.
Yeah, it's really tedious. So TypeScript is not at all like JavaScript. It is very much like C#, that it is intended to be C# for the web. It's created by Microsoft. It was kind of started by Google with @script, which is a lot closer to JSDoc. Which, by the way, let me introduce JSDoc real quick. Do you know what JSDoc is? Okay, well, we'll go into that in a second. I won't go to the explanation, but it is kind of what it sounds like it is, which is that you write documentation. You might be familiar with many languages. Documentation gets generated automatically, like you just write code and then boom, you get documentation. So I'll give you an example of that. Go is probably the best example of a language that does this because every Go program generates documentation. So if we go to go.package.dev, we go to, yeah, and it generates, like, if you do nothing, if you are the worst coder in the world, if your program can pass through the compiler, it will generate documentation that is useful. So not just it generates documentation, it generates useful documentation. And then you can go above and beyond and actually make your code not stuck, and then you're really on a roll. So I'm going to go to one of my projects here, just to give you an idea of, that is not what I expected. Go.package.dev. Is it package.go.dev? Oh, whoops. Okay, we'll just go look at this random one here. So it basically takes in the README and does that, and then it gives you the functions, and you can just click on a function, and then it will actually, this one, like, it looks like the guy put in the comments and stuff, but it's pretty useful. If nothing else, it gives you a really nice index of everything that you can do and what type it is, and links to anything else that it references. If it's in the standard library, if it's another open source library, you can go back around, and this is really good.
Oxygen?
No, this is GoDoc.
Oh.
So Go has basically, they've done the entire software engineering package into the main install. It's all part of the standard, I don't know if you call it standard library, but the standard tooling. So the formatter, the linter, the document generator, their substitution for macros is called Go generate. Like, all that stuff is in their standard tooling. So Go is the best language for being a software engineer because everything's there. If you just want to get up and go and have great tools, Go's great for that. Now, JavaScript is nice because it's so fluid, and JSDoc gives you the ability. Now, I don't think the JSDoc looks this good. I don't think that their conventions are quite as nice, but JSDoc gives you something like this, where you don't have to go look at the file and see, let me scroll down and see if this thing's there and do a search. You can go to the page for JSDoc and you can say, okay, here's a list of functions. Here's what it accepts, etc. Now, I'm not going to go over using JSDoc per se, for that purpose. That'll be a different or an addendum to this perhaps. But what I am going to go over is how you take a JavaScript project and get type linting with it. And so you can find things that are misspelled, or you can find things that are missing. And that's the kind of benefit that we'll get out of this. So this project right now, we're going to build a little bit more into it, and I might have to copy from another project as well. But let me go ahead, and I'm just going to put this in my projects directory.
Can it catch like use before initialize type things?
So I don't know, because that's not what I use it for. I use JS hint for my general linter, and I'm using tsserver specifically for the benefits that I have not been able to get elsewhere. Because to me, like this is the thing with coding, and I'll go into this in the presentation I do next month. It's going to be on patterns and kind of like the philosophy of coding. But if we cannot identify correct code, but we can identify certain types of incorrect code, right? So out of all of the things that you could type on a keyboard, there's a very narrow subset that is code. And any linter is going to be able to catch that, right? So we want a linter right out of the gate because we want to be able to catch anything that isn't code. And then out of code, there are certain things that we know cannot be correct. So if we assign null to something, if we say var a equals null, and then we call a.toString, we can know with certainty that that won't work. Now, linters don't give you that, but that's where tsserver comes in. tsserver can look at something and say, hey, this is a type. The type is null. You just assigned this to null. Now I know it's null. So I can look at this file without running it, without the program executing, and I can determine just by looking at the file, I know that the type of this thing is null, and I know if you call toString on it, that that's wrong, and I can give you the warning. So we'll see that in just a second. So let me, I'm going to open up another project here that I'm going to pull some stuff from to get us started. So I have in here a Express starter, which is going to be the perfect thing for me to, let me go back to repositories. I should probably put stars by these or something. Okay, Node Express starter. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this one as well, just so I can copy some stuff over, and we'll modify it a little bit. But go ahead and clone this. So I'm going to go into the directory where my JSDoc starter is, which I just didn't have enough time to copy over these things. But my goal is to have this be that if you clone this project and you have your editor set up, that you'll immediately see that some things are passing the lint and some things are failing. So we're gonna create that right now. We're just gonna create some things that pass and some things that fail. So what I'm gonna do, this isn't what I normally do. I don't normally create a source directory. Actually, I do normally create a lib directory. So I'm gonna do that. We're gonna do move source to lib. That's what I'll call this. I'm gonna go into my, I don't have a package.json yet, but we'll do npm init-y, and I'm just gonna accept whatever the defaults are and ignore the rest for now. So I've got a package.json. And I've got, you can do, I think it's TypeScript init, but there's some things you got to change, and the file's really big and gnarly, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to install TypeScript. So I've got this in the README already. So I should probably, whoops, not that one, this one. So I should probably just go ahead and copy these.
Are you going to add that to Webby?
What?
Those commands?
No. No, because this kind of stuff is, I might add TypeScript. That might be worth adding.
Yeah.
But no, these things are very specific. So what I'm doing here is there's a types organization on NPM. It used to be called definitively typed, I think is where this comes from. And then that started becoming megabytes and megabytes of type files. And so now it's being split up into things as @types. So @types is a GitHub organization. And then /node is a package under the organization, and then /express is a package under the organization. So this is just going to give me, Express is a dead project. It's never going to get updated. The type files are never going to make it into the main repository, most likely, unless it somehow gets funding or somebody gets interested in maintaining it again. And then Node, I don't know that it's really their deal to put the type files inside of Node, because just philosophically that might not quite make sense. But a lot of projects have type files in the project nowadays. And a lot of the other ones that are popular, you can get an @type / whatever the name of the package is for that. So, I mean, it's trial and error to figure out, as you grow a project, but we'll just start out small here. And I'm going to need npm install save express. We're going to use express. I'm going to use @root async router because I don't hate myself. And if I haven't told you guys about this before, if you're using Express and you're not using async router, you deserve to treat yourself better, because it'll catch your errors, and it's like a really tiny itsy bitsy 50-line extension on top of the existing Express router, so it doesn't break anything. It just unbreaks things and allows you to use async await and promises properly. Anyway, so got that, and now I'm just going to copy some stuff over from my other project here, which was the Node Express starter. Whoops, let's not do this before GitHub Actions. So Node Express starter. I just need probably the app. I guess I don't know. I'll go copy the app.js from there real quick. Let me just copy everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this under lib app.js, and we're going to need a couple of files just to kind of demonstrate how this thing works. So let's see. And I'm going to need to copy my JS hint. Oops. That's not correct. Oh well. My JS hint RC and my prettier.brc.json. Well, I guess I'll just copy all the prettier stuff. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to be able to open this up, and I'm going to move a few of these things out of here. I'm just going to leave the routes in here, and I'm going to move the rest of the stuff out. That's what I'm going to do. So I'll just copy it, server.js, and then we'll just get rid of all these routes, and we'll do app is equal to require lib app, and get rid of the rest of the stuff. Okay, so basically I've got my hello world now. I need to go delete some stuff out of this file. Doesn't need any of that stuff here. Don't need that there. That's good. Doesn't need any of this here. Okay. And actually, I'm gonna do this a little bit better even. So when a file starts to get, or a project starts to get a little bit bigger, what I tend to do is I'm going to call this routes.hello, so I can show this off. So sorry, this is just boilerplate that I didn't get done ahead of time. I'm just kind of doing this ad hoc anyway. What is this going to be? Error. Oh no, this is the default error handler, so that should go the other way anyway. So this is good. We're going to take that, got our error handler. That's all we need, yeah. So this is actually going to be good enough to get us started right here. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say, let's call this routes instead. I'm going to move just a couple more things around, and then this will start to come together.
Why do you get the nuclear symbol on the left-hand side of your screen?
Because it's a warning. Actually, no, nuclear is an error.
Okay.
It's in my editor config. If you get Vim Essentials from webinstall.dev, I just put that as the one of the very few customizations that like I try to keep these things extremely vanilla, but I just put an emoji there for the warning symbol as opposed to like I think before it was like a purple block versus a red block or something like that. I just thought more clear. But anyway, so that's actually not even what I want to do here. So we actually do want to, I'm going to take that out, and we're going to do express.hello equals hello. So now this is really tiny. Okay, so here I've got a routes file, and the only route in it is hello. And now I'm going to go over here, and I'm actually going to say, okay, let's get our app. We're going to set up our app, and we're going to have an app with routes.hello and routes.goodbye. And we're going to do goodbye. Now, right now, I just have my normal linter. I haven't actually set up the TypeScript server yet. So right now, my normal linter is running, and it's saying, hey, this looks like a valid JavaScript program. Now, I know that we're kind of looking at this thing. We can't see the whole file, right? But, and I know I was jumping back and forth a lot, but assuming that what I had originally is a Hello World project that worked, and I know that it was working, I just made a couple of changes. Are there any changes that you know for certain that this is a broken program that will not work?
Goodbye.
Yes.
Doesn't exist.
Yes. So the question is, why can't my linter just tell me that this doesn't exist, right? Because it can look at the code, and we know for certain, we know for a fact, goodbye is not anywhere in the code. There's no ambiguity. We don't have to run this code to be able to discover that it's broken. We should be able to know. And that's what tsserver is going to give us. So I'm going to demonstrate that first. Now it's, I'm not using VS Code, but getting this set up with VS Code is very simple. It basically, you just click the button that says OK. For Vim, I need to edit my Vim config, and I'm just going to go down towards where I have ALE set up. ALE, it's like asynchronous linter. And I'm just going to add this one line is all I'm going to add.
Could you imagine if AL was synchronous?
Well, then it would be syntactic. But syntactic is the previous one.
Wow.
So syntactic only runs when you save, and you can't do anything else while it's running. AL runs the language server in the background, and then it will update the line numbers as you go, which is, in the case of TypeScript on a big file, that can actually be kind of obnoxious. But anyway, so what I've done here is I've just copied over this thing that says, hey, if you see a JavaScript file, because it's set up, normally it would be TypeScript only. So if you see a JavaScript file, use tsserver as the primary linter and JSHint as the secondary linter. Now we're going to go open up server.js, and it's going to take a second because tsserver takes a minute to boot. And let me make sure that I got everything else here. I've got my TS config. So I'll show you that this TS config is not like the default, but I need to trim out some of these comments from it because it makes it so difficult to read. But essentially, allow.js, check.js, no emit. These are the core things that make it work with JavaScript. Module common.js so that it works with Node. Target yes next so that basically I'm not worried about accidentally using JavaScript that doesn't exist yet. Node is pretty current. You got to worry about that more with browsers and transpile, but I don't want to transpile. I don't want to do that stuff. When I put it in strict mode, now I put no implicit any false. This is an option which I'll put in the README here a little bit later. This is an option that you probably want to start with false and eventually turn to true once you get rid of all of the big errors. So once you don't get any errors from the linter normally, then you want to turn this on to true, because what it's going to do is say, okay, now you must provide type information for me to be able to check more deeply. Because by default, well, actually by default this is on, but I turn it off because it's just too obnoxious. If you have existing code, you don't want to see every single line has a warning message on it. It's not productive. So you turn that off, get your stuff cleaned up, and then turn it on and start building your types, which we'll go through up to that point. Now let me see if the language server got booted up. It looks like it did not. So let me make sure that TypeScript, did I install TypeScript? TypeScript Okay, so it looks like
Is it TS? It's
I.
not TS, is it?
Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another terminal and I'm going to see if it appears there. Okay, I'm going to install npm install-g TypeScript again in case I didn't do that or I typoed it or something. All right, it's got TSC.
So that's
Whoops, TSC. Finding it? Something might be going a little bit right. tsserver. Am I getting tsserver? Okay, yeah, I'm getting tsserver. Let me.
What if you just type TSC out?
So I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Might have to go double check the environment where I have this working because I may not have ironed out all the kinks yet. But I'm pretty sure. Did I need to install any Vim plugin? Maybe I'm missing a Vim plugin. Hold on just a second. Let me go check my Vim plugins folder on my other machine because that would be a vital piece of information that I forgot to put here. And VS Code, it'll pop up and be like, you have a tsconfig file. Do you want to enable TypeScript for this project? And you just say yeah. But let's see. I think I did need to do something. I just didn't. Let's see. Pack plugins.
Yeah.
Well, this one is actually ZSH on my other computer because it's the default shell, and I don't like to do anything that requires sudo. So I changed the shell in my terminal configuration rather than my etc password type stuff. But anyway, we've got AL. What do we got? Vim. Well, that's not JSDoc. Maybe I need JSDoc.vim. Maybe that's what I'm missing here. Let me go get that real quick. Was this the right one? Let me go figure out which one's the right one. Let's see. We have a .get in here that tells us where this came from. Okay, this is the JSDoc that we want. I need to make him start up issues on this thing and just paste in some stuff. Missing things. Where'd it go? Copy. There we go. Paste. Oh, you're not copying and pasting like you should. Copy. There we go. Copy. I will win. All right. So let me just try this again real quick. Git clone, put this thing into .vim pack plugins start JSDoc.vim. Really hope that I can, if nothing else, I can copy this project over to the computer where I do have everything set up. I was trying to document it and like make sure I captured everything, but it looks like I may have not. So I'll just rsync this over to a system where things are working as expected real quick, and then I'll update the instructions afterwards. Okay. But it was kind of a finicky process to get it set up in the first place. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go back through and do everything again to make sure that I got it right. Obviously, I'm missing a couple of things, but let's try this. Let's see if this works for us. Because what it should do at this point, and what it has been doing for me elsewhere, is it's been very nice in saying, oh, this doesn't exist there, but we're not seeing I mean, come on. Is the linter working at all? Yes, it is working at all. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, it took it a second to get booted up. That's the thing with the TypeScript server. It's like really huge. And so if you're using Vim, you want to be using something like nerd tree so you can switch between files in a window, because you don't want every single time you open the file for it to take 20 seconds for it to boot up. But there we go, right there. Oh, no. Oh. Dang it. Oh, this is frustrating because I have it working. I do. I really do. I can. Okay, let's see if I can adjust the TS config. Let's do maybe I have like a typo in here and it's not running or something. This is the one thing I don't like about their. Let's see if I can run JSON fix npm install sg JSON fix. So they use JSON 5 for their config file, which means that it can have things that are not valid in normal JSON. Oh, fix JSON, is that it? Yeah, JSON 5 is a pseudo standard. It basically is just JSON with comments and like allows, it like has comments and allows trailing commas and a couple of things like that. Okay. So that looks right. Gosh, let me go check the other project that is totally 100% working with this right now. I might have to show it to you in that. Okay. See, yeah, I don't like the JSON 5 because it's not valid JSON, and so then it, like in the editor, it shows up all skiddly wampus you do. Maybe it should be ES 2021. I'm pretty sure I copied from this config file.
The other one says ES next. I don't know if that makes a difference, but
Yeah, I'm gonna swap it just to see, because I thought ES next would actually be the better thing to use, because that means just use whatever is the latest. But for the sake of being 100% consistent with the one that actually is verifiably working, and I got like the TS config was the main thing, and then having the TypeScript server. I'm gonna do one other thing back over here, or where are we at? Oops, let me get out of this one. Sorry about this. I was just like, I wanted to present on this while it's fresh in my mind before I forget all of the pains that I've been going through, but apparently it's still a little too fresh. So I do apologize. Because I thought I had it. I was like, okay, I got this file, I got this file, I got this file, everything's there. Let me just check in here. I'm pretty sure it was working on the other computer too. I'm gonna just check in here. Pack, plugins, start. Do we have any TypeScript thing here? Specific? No, because TypeScript's built into ONeal. So it shouldn't need anything extra. And this one doesn't even have JSDoc, and this one is working. So JSDoc actually just gives you auto-completion. That's what the JSDoc one does, so we don't even need that. Okay, I'm just gonna run TSC right here and let that run for a second while I open this up. Okay. All right, sweet. So we're getting somewhere. Let me go into my types file. So this is part of what I was going to show you. You can do like this, where you define a type. So say I'm going to define a type user, and then that wasn't supposed to be like that. That was supposed to be like given name, family name, right? So you can define a type, and then you can annotate something in your code with that type. And then if you misspell something and it's not listed in the type definition, then it won't be valid. And so as you go and you ad hoc add things, you'll get the linting errors, but then you can go into your file and say, this is the correct spelling of that thing. This is what it is. It's a string, it's a number. You can also do something like, I don't know what would be a good, what's something that could be a string or a number, or maybe we could have something that's an object or null. Let's say object or null, or I guess you'd actually have to call it, yeah, could you call that? You'd have to call it record. That's what you'd have to do. So record is a TypeScript type. So if you want to make something an object, like a simple map, it's called record string any. And so we could say that I could have a.
Is that even like an associative container?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a dictionary, a map, a record. So we could say that I can have this thing that is, let's say, favorites.
Favorite movies or something.
Yeah, and it can be either a map or it could be null. So you can do like that. And then
Like movie ratings, maybe, or something, right?
yeah. And then this one, they have to start with double stars on them for them to be considered TypeScript docs. I'm actually going to comment this one out. Well, how do I do that? I'm going to comment this one out for now. But this is an example. This is something I've run across where sometimes it gets confused because if you're doing pure TypeScript, then it's going to be able to trace everything perfectly, but then you've got to have all this verbosity, right? Like you don't want to have to go create a class and then anytime you want to have an object that has these three properties on it, have to go create the user class and do a new instance of it and like all that ceremony just to have these three things. You want to be able to just type like JavaScript, you know, keep it nice and fluid. But there's cases where you have something in one file that also references something in another file, and it can't tell that you're joining the two things together, that this has the properties of this and that. And so for things where it does understand the types, because as you npm install stuff, it'll understand the types of the things you're npm installing. And you can use this kind of syntax to say, hey, I have this thing called user model that's part of my database model, and it's actually built on top of an objection model. So I want you to know that the user model is part of objection model. So you can do an and to say, take these two things, mix them together, and then retype that same type as the new type name, and then you can use that elsewhere. Actually, I think I typoed this. I think I meant to do like, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, I'll update this as I get it better. But let me go ahead and run this again, and let's see if we can find the error this time. I'm so upset because I've been like so excited about this thing because
Is it because of the line 12?
No. This is just bogus. So I don't have anything that can use that yet. So it's complaining about it. But what it should notice that it has been noticing for me, which is why I've been so excited about it, is that it has been able to tell me when something is missing. So let me just go make sure again. All right, module.exports.hello equals hello. Yeah. I don't know why it's misbehaving now. So I wanted to show you how cool this is and how it, you know, I'm going to try one more thing and then I'm just going to give up and say, you know what, sorry guys, I promise that it's working in the project that I'm working on at work. And I will get this updated because I think this is really good to have. But I'll do this other thing here and see if it'll catch this. Hopefully it will. So let's say I want to do user authentication. And that's the first thing that I want to do in my applications. I want to check, see if there's some sort of token, right? So I won't actually do what that is. I'll just put a comment here. So it's going to be rec.headers. Say, if you're using the TypeScript checker, you actually have to do it like this because records have to be with string notation rather than with dot notation. But anyway, so I'm going to be checking something like that. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, this is an admin. Wait, okay, so that part's working. So why is not the other stuff working? So we're going to say rec.admin equals true. And oh, you know what? I actually have an idea as to why this isn't working. Let me try this one thing. I think maybe if I turned off the strict type checking, but I didn't turn on the non-strict type checking, if that makes sense. So let me do type import express, whoops, dot handler. And then I need to have this have an at in it. And what I do is I add the star last because the TypeScript server gets really angry. And starts yelling at you if you do things that it doesn't like. Okay, I'm going to show you in the other project because I want you to see that this is actually working. Because once I tell it, okay, this function is of type express handler, then it would complain and say, well, rec.admin isn't part of express handler. And then I was going to show you how you fix that, but I don't know what is going on. So I'm just going to go to my work project here. All right, and I'm going to turn back on the strict checking so it just goes hog wild crazy. Man, I'm so upset. Oh crap! Oh, I know what I did wrong. Okay. Dang it. Okay, I think I'm gonna stay in that folder just in case. No, I'm gonna try this one more time and I'll do that. So in my tsconfig file, oops, I forgot to change src to lib. This is one of the things I was going to go over in the README. It's like, make sure you get this right, because if you don't, then nothing works. So let me go through the README that I do have. Oh, I don't have that in there yet. Okay. So you have to tell it what to include that you want it to do the checking on, and maybe what you want to exclude. So, and it should include your node modules at types by default, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go check in the other one here and just make sure that these two are as similar as possible. I copied them from each other, so it should be. Do I have the at types at all in here? Type roots. Type roots. There we go. So we have type roots in here. Type roots. Okay, yeah. So here you see type roots. So you have to tell it where you're going to put type files. At types is where I'm going to put my custom type files that I'm overriding other things like Express to say, even though Express doesn't have a rec.admin, I have rec.admin for my copy of Express. And at node modules at types is where it's going to find the types that you're installing from the types thing. So this is where it's going to do the type lookup. And then you need, if you have a global types file, that doesn't go in type roots, that goes in includes. And this is kind of confusing. And then all of your code, if you have your code in like lib or whatever. So let me go ahead and add this server.js. There we go. That was my problem. So now if I go into here, if I don't tell it to exclude, then maybe it'll actually work. Let's give it a second to boot up. Usually takes 10. All right, there we go. Yes. Yes, triumph! The demo gods have left their blessing upon us. So now, sorry for all of that stupidness. Yeah, and as you can see, I'm new to this. I'm still figuring out its peculiarities and making mistakes. Property goodbye does not exist. That right there is worth the 10 hours that I've spent figuring out how to do this, and it's going to be worth the next 3 or 4 that I spend documenting the process and writing up blog posts and all that, because these are errors that we know the code is wrong. And then same thing here. We know that this could be a misspelling. So what I'll do, let me show you this. We do user equals, say, given name is AJ. I'm going to figure out how to get this to be more type specific later. Right now, rec.user is just any. So you'll notice if I do rec.xuser, it gives an error. If I do rec.user, it's happy, right? And if I do rec.admin, it's not happy. Well, why is that? Because I have a types folder here, and this is where I've overridden express types. So I said, you know what? Express for me can have a user. It may or may not. So it might be null, or it might exist. That's what the question mark is about. If I say this, then it's saying it's always going to exist. If I put the question mark, it means it may or may not exist, which is going to tell it. So if I try to use it, if I try to read it, say as a string, then it's going to say, hey, you're trying to read this as a string, but it's an any. Or it might be null. Or if I were to change this to be a string, so let's say, admin is Boolean. Let's say admin might exist, and it's Boolean, then the type hinter would be able to say like, hey, you're checking to see if this is true, but it might be null, that kind of thing. So anyway, I go in here, I put in admin, we go back, we give it the 5 seconds that it needs to boot up, and then we're gonna see, well, we won't see anything.
It'll still say route conducted, right?
Yeah, so there we go. So now it understands like, oh, in your version of request, you wanna have these things. And then I'm gonna figure out how to make it so that, let's just try this and see what happens. I'm not sure if it's gonna work. Because I don't know how to do like cross imports yet to say, I want you to recognize my local user variable, but I'm just gonna see if this works, because it might just work. So let's go here and we got given name, and let's put dog Fido, and let's see what happens. You might get lucky. Because when you're using JSDoc, it kind of, okay, does not exist in type user. Given name string does not exist in type user. Let's see if that's true. So types, okay, indeed. So let's go given name, and then let's do dog X. So we won't put dog, we'll just put given name there. So it's really, it is abusing the TypeScript server, it is crossing the streams, but it worketh. So see now, it says given name, it's cool. Oh no, is it saying, let me get rid of dog and see if it stops complaining if I get rid of dog. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm able to mix and match types between my project and the Express project, even though they live in different scopes. And so this is an abuse of 3 different systems. It's definition files is one of the systems we're abusing. And JSDoc is another system that we're abusing. And then just the import system in general is being abused. But yeah. So anyway, I'm going to distill this down. I'm going to get this repo where basically what's going to happen is kind of like what you see here, where there's going to be some things that have errors and some things that don't have errors. And then I'm going to, in that README, I'm going to enumerate what we talked about so that you could take this project and just kind of take the way that it's done. And I'm going to apply a couple more corner cases that I don't want to do live coding because we already wasted so much time on stupid, didn't put the right directory in the whatever. But I'm gonna put a couple more of the corner cases that I've encountered, and as I go on, I'll try to update this example and keep it so it's like, hey, when you have this problem where you need to overlay something on top of a module, here's how you do it. When you have this problem where you've got something in 2 different files and you need to share it, here's how you do it. One other thing that I'll do, just real quick, so I'm gonna show user foo x. So there, what we've done is we've abused the Express handler to make it believe that the Express handler should have a user that is our type of user that's in our type file. Now here, whoops, because I have it in non-strict mode. Okay, let's say I do console.log here just so that linting error that's not relevant goes away. Okay, so right now it's not giving me any errors. If I let's go turn on strict type checking. Where's that at? Implicit, no implicit any is the one that we need to do. So I'm going to turn this into true because now, I'll just comment this out because that's not a problem anymore. We caught that error. So we go here, and what is it complaining about this for? Oh, because this is, okay. It's implying that the user is exactly the type that it is. So it's implying that user is an object that has foo. There's other cases where it would give an error here, but let me go ahead and make it give an error. So we're gonna let me actually just do 1 star first. And I do the 1 star first because it's asynchronous. When the type checker kicks in, it can slow down your typing. And so I don't put the second star that would trigger the type checker until I have the type typed out. Otherwise, while I'm typing the type, it's type checking things wrong. But so I can put type user here. And now that I've annotated this, boom, now it knows type user can't have this. And then if I were to do one more thing, let me go ahead and go into our types. And let's say that the user has to have a given name and a family name. And I'm not quite sure how we do optional in this. I don't know if it's like a that, because there's three different syntaxes we're working with essentially. Let's say, you know, there's a dog. I think there's a way to make it optional. I think this is it. Put a question mark on the type. So if I go back in here and now.
Would it be or null?
So it could be, but then that would mean that it needs to be null. Whereas question mark means that it could not exist at all. But let's say we do given name. I'm hoping that this should tell me that it's missing family name. Yeah. So we can't see the whole message, but basically it's telling me, hey, you told me that a user always has a given name and a family name, but this is missing family name. But it's not missing dog. Wait.
But G, I think it's supposed to be dog. Dog. You were saying it earlier, it was just the end of it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there's some way that we can tell it that it's optional. Apparently, that's not right. Let's try it like this. Let's see if that works. Okay, cool. So that's where you put the question mark. So now we can put dog here. Yo. Or we can not put dog. Okay, no, that didn't work either. I'll have to go look that up. But anyway, you get the point. There is a way to specify that something's optional. The one thing that's kind of annoying about this as you're going through and updating your projects is you'll be copying these type annotations over and over and over again. So every single express handler you're going to have a type annotation for. And this one, let's see, I think if I hit dot, and then you should get this IntelliSense stuff automatically in VS Code and Vim. There's another option that I will put in that README that I don't have in there quite yet. But I should be able to find this is an error request handler. There we go. So say this is an error request handler, and then boom.
Pretty fancy.
So I think this is a nice middle ground. I don't have to use TypeScript. I get to progressively enhance my JavaScript to be better JavaScript. There is a little bit of learning to it, but there is a little bit of learning to it because literally I could not find any documentation on the web that gets you as far as what I've gotten. I had to open up issues and post on Stack Overflow and read 6 different blogs. I will put this together. This is something that I would recommend that you use in your projects. If nothing else, keep the any off. If that bothers you too much to have to go type your stuff, keep that. If nothing else, get it in your project so that you can see when something's undefined. If nothing else, or it will also let you know when things that are part of Node, or part of JavaScript. So one more example that I'll try to give real quick. Check this out. So let's say we have blah.match foo. I think this is correct.
Foo.match blah, right?
Okay. Thanks. I always get that mixed up. So we'll do blah match foo. So this is something really, really cool. Check this. So let's just pretend like returning something here does something. I just want to get the linter errors in the right place. It's going to tell me it doesn't. That's good. Thank you. It bugs the bejeebies out of me when people do like return next and return res.send. Like, no, you don't return those things. Okay, I need to console.log. Here we go. We'll just do a console.log. So check this out, right? Object is possibly null. How many times, simple things like this, the compiler or the linter should be able to tell you with certainty, we know that can be an error. Right. So it's just these little things. These little things is like, if we can improve our code quality by capturing the areas where we can be certain that there's an error, then we are winning. We don't have to be certain that the code is correct. Well, we do, but that's impossible. But we can be certain that the code is incorrect. And so, you know, this is just something you get from the TS linter for free. It knows every JavaScript type. It knows every JavaScript return value of everything that's in the JavaScript spec. If you treat something as a value that is not appropriate, it will let you know. So, with that, go ahead and I'll put this in the chat on the Discord, and I will also put it in the, if I can find where the Jitsi went, but I guess none of you are actually in the Jitsi right now, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, I will update this. I promise you, you have my word. I will update this and get it to a point where if you clone the repo, and I'll have these couple of points of contention of like, make sure you edit this line. I'll have that in there. I've got this recorded, so if I have to, I'll go back and just watch this. But I really feel like this is something that can bring a lot of value to you. It's already brought a lot of value to me. Just getting the thing, just anything we can do to surface the things we know are wrong is a huge win. So thanks for sticking here, not leaving through all of that long.
Thank you.
Have you thought about making like a Vim plugin or VS Code plugin instead of having to do that for every project?
What do you mean?
Like taking this concept and turning it into a plugin.
Well, it's not. So you have to install TypeScript.
Yeah.
You have to have these in your package.json. You have to have a TS config. You have to have a definition file for anything that you're overriding in other types that aren't your types. You have to have a global types. So there's nothing really here that is, it's already built into VS Code and it's already built into AL. So the only thing that I needed to do in terms of Vim was I just needed to say, hey, use tsserver. So I know that I was really jumbled as I was going through and making mistakes. So something may have come across really incorrectly, but what is it that you think would go into Vim, or what is it that would be the plugin
just
for?
wants to kind of like automate. all
Yeah,
this,
it would
so
just be
you can
nice if you just had to do it once and then you could turn it on or off for different projects, or could determine if you're using JavaScript and then just automatically.
Well, but you have to create these files,
Yeah.
and they have to match your config. So
That makes sense.
that's it. So what I could do is say, hey, use this project as a template and just copy these 3 or 4 things and run these commands. Like basically, I can give you what to copy and paste for a project, but because it is like, if your source directory is src, you need to spell it correctly and have it be src. If your directory is lib, you want it to be lib.
Makes sense.
So there's not really much I can automate other than say these are the options that you should turn on, and these are the 3 things that you need to pay attention to out of the gate. But this should be like, clone this project, edit 1 line in your vimrc, or click the OK button in VS Code, and this should work. This project should be a demonstrable, like, you're going to get, I'll put a comment in the code, you're going to get an error on this line. That's expected. That's the thing doing its job.
Cool. That definitely would take me a lot of time.
I'll definitely use it because I tried TypeScript. It was too much.
Well, yeah, I think that if they had done, so Go and JavaScript actually have a lot in common, though don't ever tell the Go authors I said that. But Go and JavaScript both have a way of being extremely lightweight and flexible. And I think that if the people that were on the Go team, which they would probably never touch JavaScript with a 39.5-foot pole, but if the people on the Go team had been the people that had created TypeScript, they would have created the TypeScript that people who like JavaScript would have wanted. But that's not the goal of TypeScript. The goal of TypeScript is to be for C# developers. Anyway, I will see if I can find out where the recording is so that I can stop it. Any other questions?
I don't think so.